The girl in the photo is Zhao Qingxiang, born into a poor family. She worked hard and graduated with a master's degree from China's Nankai University before going to the US to pursue her PhD. In 2002, while visiting her hometown in China with her husband, she was brutally murdered at home by her own father, who struck her multiple times with an axe. During his trial, her father showed no remorse and made outrageous statements in court declaring, "I have no regrets. A traitor deserves to die." What could possibly drive a father to such a cruel act against his own daughter? In June 1972, a girl was born in a small village called Jiajiazhuangzi in Jiaoyuan, Yantai, Shandong, China. Her parents named her Zhao Qingxiang. Life in rural China in the 1970s was tough for most families, and Zhao Qingxiang's family was no different. Her parents were farmers who made a living off their few acres of land. But her birth did not bring joy to this ordinary household. Quite the opposite. Her father was greatly displeased. During the 1970s in China, a strong preference for sons was widespread, as boys were seen as heirs who could continue the family line, inherit property, and provide support in old age. Zhao Qingxiang's father, Zhao Yuling, was eager to have a son. Throughout his wife's pregnancy, he dreamed of having a male heir, so when a daughter was born instead, he was immediately unhappy. Given the scarcity of resources and the general hardships of rural life in 1970s China, Zhao Qingxiang's childhood was predictably difficult. But Zhao Yuling was determined. Having a daughter didn't mean he'd give up on having a son. A little over a year later, his wife became pregnant again. This time, Zhao got what he wanted. When Zhao Qingxiang was 2, her brother Zhao Qingchuan was born. Overjoyed by his son's arrival, Zhao Yuling hosted a large feast in the village and showered the boy with love. However, this joy was short-lived. Not long after his birth, Zhao Qingchuan was diagnosed with meningitis. It started with a fever, but due to the poor medical conditions of the town's hospital, his treatment was delayed, and by the time they tried to help him, the damage was done. He was left with epilepsy, already the focus of all their affection. The younger brother now commanded even more of their parents' attention, while Zhao Qingxiang was sent to live with her grandmother and didn't return home until she started primary school. Every day after school, she was responsible for farm chores and cleaning the yard, essentially becoming the family's little housekeeper. She received no love from her parents and had to defer to her brother in all matters. If she accidentally upset him, she would be met with a round of scolding and punishment. Growing up in such an environment, Zhao Qingxiang was destined to endure hardship. Perhaps sensing her parents' favoritism, she quickly understood that studying is the way to change one's fate. After starting school, Zhao Qingxiang was a very diligent student. Even after long days of housework, she would find time to study hard and consistently ranked among the top students. The awards she won one after another were hung up around the house. Shy and lacking confidence, she hoped that by excelling in school, she could earn her parents' praise and respect. But no matter how hard she tried, she was met only with her father's cold words, as if she were an unwanted child. Zhao felt heartbroken, but what could she do? He was her father. After graduating from middle school, Zhao Qingxiang passed the entrance exam to the county's top high school with the highest score in her class. Excited, she rushed to share the news with her parents. However, her father had other thoughts. In their village, most girls finished middle school and then went out to work, earning money to help support the family. Given their family's poor financial situation and her brother's ongoing medical expenses, Zhao Yuling told his daughter directly that she should also stop schooling. Instead, she could either work on the farm or go to the city to find a job. Zhao Qingxiang felt devastated. She was still young and wanted to continue her education, but if her father put his foot down, she had no power to change his mind. Fortunately, relatives and friends pointed out that it would be a waste to let such a bright and talented girl stop studying. Under the strong persuasion of relatives and friends, Zhao Yuling eventually relented. However, there wasn't much extra money at home, so Zhao Qingxiang spent her entire vacation working to cover her own living expenses. She was finally able to enroll in the top high school, and those 3 years were perhaps the happiest of her life. Away from home, living in the dormitory, she didn't have to endure her parents' criticism, deal with family drama, or do heavy housework. She could focus solely on her studies. Meanwhile, her younger brother, Qingchuan, whose health had always been frail, grew up spoiled by their parents. After finishing middle school, he couldn't keep up with his studies and found a casual job nearby. In 1990, after 3 years of hard work, Qingxiang delivered an outstanding performance on her college entrance exams. She was admitted to the chemistry department at Nankai University, one of China's top institutions. Such an achievement was a source of pride for the family and quickly became the talk of the village, with many people coming to the Zhao household to offer their congratulations. Under normal circumstances, a family would celebrate such an honor, but Zhao Yuling didn't see it that way. What good is it if a daughter makes something of herself? She'll eventually get married, have children, and belong to another family, he said. Zhao Yuling urged her not to go to university, reminding her that her brother still needed money for medical treatment and that the family couldn't afford it. It's true that the Zhaos were struggling financially, but let's flip the script. If it had been Zhao Qingchuan who got into university, wouldn't Zhao Yuling have moved heaven and earth to pay for his education? Thankfully, Zhao Qingxiang was now old enough to have her own goals and the ability to choose the life she wanted. She directly confronted her parents, saying she would try her best not to rely on their money during her time at university. The school would provide scholarships and financial aid, and she could work to support herself. Seeing his daughter's determination and hearing from others that Nankai University was an exceptional school with good job prospects post-graduation, Zhao Yuling grudgingly agreed once more. Zhao Qingxiang was able to enter university, and although she didn't intend to depend on her family, starting college was tough, and things were not stable yet. During her freshman and sophomore years, her father and brother would occasionally supplement her expenses by working at local brick factories in addition to farming. A father and brother providing support for a university-going daughter would seem only natural, but in Zhao Yuling's eyes, his son was a real family member, while his daughter would eventually become water poured out, a traditional saying implying that a daughter is essentially lost to her family once she marries. He viewed everything he gave to his daughter as if it had a price tag, and saw these contributions as akin to a bank deposit that would later require interest. During her time at university, Zhao Qingxiang was very frugal, knowing her family situation. Over the 4 years, she never returned home. Being in Tianjin, a big city, she used her summer and winter breaks to work as a tutor and make money. By her junior year, Zhao's scholarships and part-time job earnings were enough to cover her tuition and living expenses fully, with even a little left over to send back home. Despite balancing work, financial stress, and her studies, Zhao Qingxiang continued to excel in her classes and earned the admiration of her professors. As graduation approached, one of her professors approached Zhao Qingxiang with an exciting opportunity. The school had reserved slots for direct admission to graduate studies, and the professor wanted her to continue her education. With a master's degree, there would be a high probability of landing a job at a major research institution. Zhao was thrilled by the prospect. It was a fantastic opportunity. But then, reality set in. How would she break the news to her family? She knew full well that her parents had supported her education solely in the hope that she would start working right after graduation and make money to support the family. If she told them she wanted to pursue a master's degree, they would undoubtedly oppose it. After much internal struggle, Zhao decided that her life should be her own to choose, and she was determined to pursue graduate school. When she told her parents as expected, her father was strongly against the idea. "Why did we raise you all these years? The family is struggling, your brother is sick, and we're counting on you to make money to help out. But you want to spend your whole life studying," he argued. Zhao Qingxiang pleaded with her father, promising that her graduate studies wouldn't cost the family anything, and even swearing that she would always take care of her brother in the future. Seeing their daughter's resolve and her earnest promises, Zhao's parents reluctantly agreed to let her stay in Tianjin to continue her studies. With her parents' reluctant consent, Zhao was able to enroll in Nankai University's graduate program for polymer chemistry. To fulfill the commitment she made to her parents, Zhao continued to live frugally, sending a portion of her graduate stipend back home. Graduate school broadened Zhao Qingxiang's horizons, allowing her to meet many outstanding classmates, including one named Wei Bin. A native of Tianjin, Wei Bin was an only child from a family of dual-income earners. They weren't extraordinarily wealthy, but lived a comfortable life. Wei Bin was steady and mature in temperament, and after getting to know Zhao, he was deeply attracted to her determination, hard work, and resilience. To win her over, he did everything he could. At first, Zhao tried to keep her distance. Given her poor family background, she felt small and unworthy. Love seemed like a luxury she couldn't afford, and she feared that her circumstances would scare Wei Bin away. But Wei didn't back down. Upon learning about Zhao's situation, not only did he not hold it against her, but he also felt compassion and vowed to protect her for the rest of their lives. Moved by Wei Bin's sincerity, Zhao Qingxiang eventually agreed to be with him. After graduating from their master's program, both were at an age where marriage naturally came up. Wei brought Zhao home to meet his parents, who were not the least bit bothered by her modest background and were, in fact, quite pleased with how grounded and kind she was. The couple's relationship soon developed into marriage plans, and Zhao Qingxiang informed her parents of her intention to marry. Zhao Yuling was furious. His daughter had spent all these years studying, finally got a job, and now wanted to marry before she even started sending money home. Once she had children, there would be no more financial help for the family. If she insisted on getting married, then the bride price had to be very high. But Wei Bin was from a modest family in Tianjin, and the young couple had just graduated from their master's programs. How could they afford such an exorbitant amount? Zhao and her family faced yet another major conflict. When Zhao and Wei finally got married, the Zhao family did not contribute a single penny to the wedding, nor did any of them attend. Wei's parents handled all the preparations, feeling deep compassion for their daughter-in-law, who had suffered for so many years. They treated Zhao like their own daughter, showering her with love and care. In Zhao Yuling's eyes, it was as if there was no blood bond between him and his daughter. She was simply a tool to make money, a commodity to be sold to the highest bidder. In the late 1990s, as globalization accelerated, studying abroad became increasingly important for academic research and talent cultivation. After graduating, Zhao Qingxiang and Wei Bin had plans to continue their studies and applied for PhD programs in the U.S. With her exceptional academic record, Zhao Qingxiang secured a full scholarship to Texas Tech University, but Wei Bin didn't receive an offer that same year. At this point, the contrast between Wei Bin's parents and Zhao Yuling could not have been more stark. Wei Bin's parents, who adored Zhao, showed no hesitation when she had to leave for the U.S. first. They trusted her completely and even gave her more than 20,000 renminbi, a significant sum in China over 20 years ago, to support her. Filled with gratitude, Zhao Qingxiang set off for the U.S. to begin her new academic journey. 6 months later, Wei Bin's application was also accepted. He reunited with Zhao at Texas Tech University. Zhao's full scholarship came with a monthly stipend of $1,100, which was the couple's only source of income. They lived a frugal life in the U.S., stretching every penny and cutting costs on food and housing wherever possible. The following year, they unexpectedly found out they were going to have a baby, a surprise that brought both joy and anxiety. Since Wei Bin had switched his field of study to computer science, he was now responsible for covering his tuition fees, and Zhao's scholarship alone was not enough. Wei began working in a restaurant, and they worked hard to make it through until their child was born. So as not to fall behind in her studies, Zhao returned to the lab to continue her research soon after giving birth, leaving the baby in the care of a neighbor. When the baby was just 50 days old, they faced a tough reality. Hiring someone to look after the baby in the U.S. was too expensive, and with both finances and academic pressures weighing on them, they had no choice but to send their young child to China to be raised by Wei Bin's parents. Though heartbroken, they were determined to work even harder for their future. In 2001, the couple successfully graduated, and Zhao Qingxiang was fortunate to find a great job on the U.S. East Coast, while Wei Bin was hired by a computer company. By this time, their child was already 3 years old. During those 3 years, Wei Bin's parents were their strongest support system, lovingly taking care of their child without ever asking for a penny in financial support. On the other hand, Zhao Yuling contacted his daughter multiple times to ask for money. Although Zhao was struggling financially, she had no choice but to scrape together whatever she could to send back home. Zhao Yuling used the money to renovate the family house in their hometown. What pained Zhao, however, was that despite her child living in Tianjin, his maternal grandparents had never once gone to see him, and whenever they called, it was only to ask for money. With stable jobs and a decent income, the couple's life in the U.S. finally started to feel secure. However, their financial foundation was weak, and after paying off some debts, they managed to save just under $20,000. Longing to be with her child and feeling that the time was right, Zhao believed they were now capable of bringing their child to live with them in the U.S. On March 18, 2002, the couple set off for Tianjin, intending to bring their child back with them. What should have been a joyful homecoming turned into a tragic journey. After years of struggle, the family was finally able to reunite. Looking back, Wei Bin's parents had given their unwavering financial support, and during the couple's most challenging time studying abroad, they took in their child for 3 long years. They never once complained or asked for a penny in support, providing unconditional backing. Zhao Qingxiang was eternally grateful for this, and felt that the hardship had finally paid off. She took $10,000 of their hard-earned savings and gave it to Wei Bin's parents, sincerely thanking them for everything they had done. Wei's parents, of course, refused to accept the money, but Zhao insisted they had done so much, and she felt that this was the least she could do. When Zhao Yuling learned that his daughter and son-in-law had returned to China, he couldn't sit still. He called Zhao several times, urging her to come home for a visit. Though Zhao was deeply disheartened by her parents' treatment over the years, it had still been 4 or 5 years since she had last visited, and blood is thicker than water. She decided to go back and see them. After spending 4 days with their child in Tianjin, the couple quickly set off for Shandong. Upon arriving at her hometown, Zhao saw the newly renovated family home and a table full of food prepared by her parents. Her father seemed extremely warm and welcoming. Had he missed his daughter, who hadn't been home in years? Not quite. At the dinner table, Zhao Yuling brought it up straight away. Your brother, Zhao Qingchuan, hasn't been able to cure his epilepsy, and he's got no real job now. He's already 28, and he doesn't even have a girlfriend. Every match we find for him falls through. We're really worried. But recently, a girl from the neighboring village said she would consider marrying him, on the condition that he has a house in the county. The family doesn't have the money to buy one, but since you're back, houses aren't that expensive. Just 80,000 renminbi, and your brother's future will be secure. Then we'll be at peace. Zhao Qingxiang immediately rejected the idea, telling her father that buying a house for her brother wasn't an option. Wei Bin, already frustrated, was quick to chime in. They had done nothing but drain them of resources and had never once helped the couple in any way. Zhao Yuling's temper flared, and seeing the rising tension, Zhao's mother grabbed her daughter's hand, tears streaming down her face, and pleaded, "Your brother can't get married because of his illness. If he has a house in town, maybe this girl will marry him. Please, just help us out." Seeing her mother in tears, Zhao's heart softened. But the reality was, after buying round-trip tickets and giving $10,000 to Wei's parents, they only had about $3,000 left. There simply wasn't enough money for a house. However, her mother's sobbing eventually wore her down, and Zhao relented, saying, "I can give you $1,000 for living expenses and another $600 for my brother's treatment. But as for buying a house, let's revisit that in a couple of years." After giving them $1,600, Zhao was left with just over $1,000. But this was far from enough for Zhao Yuling, and the dinner ended on a sour note. Over the next 3 days, Zhao stayed at home. The topic of buying a house for her brother came up repeatedly. The couple held their ground, while Zhao Yuling's resentment grew deeper and deeper. In his eyes, Zhao had always said she would help her brother, but now that she was married and more independent, she was just brushing him off. Once she returned to the U.S., there would be no way to enforce his wishes. He blamed Wei Bin for all of this. His daughter had always been obedient until Wei led her astray. Firmly set on his plan, Zhao Yuling decided they would pay for that house, no matter what. On the afternoon of March 26, 2002, Zhao Qingxiang and her husband were set to take the train back to Tianjin. Zhao Yuling, in a last-ditch effort, told his wife to try once more to persuade their daughter, but the couple still didn't relent. Filled with rage and desperation, Zhao Yuling's eyes went bloodshot. His daughter was leaving, and his son's future was uncertain. If she wouldn't listen to him and support her brother, why keep her alive? That day around noon, as Zhao Qingxiang and Wei Bin were taking a nap, Zhao Yuling crept to the window and peered in to make sure they were both sound asleep. Then, he grabbed an axe, burst into the room, and brutally swung it at his daughter and son-in-law as they lay in bed. Witnessing this horrific scene, Zhao Qingchuan, the son, suffered an epileptic seizure. A neighbor soon discovered the chaos and called the police, who quickly detained Zhao Yuling. On July 4, 2002, the court publicly heard the case. Zhao Yuling admitted his crime without hesitation, and even in the courtroom, he brazenly proclaimed, "A daughter like this deserved to die. She's a traitor." The court's audience was disgusted. Here was a man who not only failed to raise his daughter, but treated her as nothing more than a cash cow. How could someone like this call himself a father? Predictably, Zhao Yuling was sentenced to death. After the ruling, Zhao Qingchuan went so far as to appeal to the court, demanding a share of his sister's estate, the very $10,000 that had been gifted to Wei Bin's parents. The appeal was promptly dismissed by the court. It's worth noting that the unfortunate couple only spent 4 days with their child before rushing back to their hometown in Shandong. The original plan was to bring the child along, but just before boarding the train, the child began to cry uncontrollably and refused to go. Left with no choice, Zhao Qingxiang left the child with his grandparents and traveled to Shandong alone with her husband, only to walk straight into a death trap. Had the child gone with them, who knows if the ruthless Zhao Yuling would have extended his bloodthirsty rage to his grandson. In that era, old-fashioned values and oppressive beliefs, like favoring sons over daughters, kept countless people trapped in numbness and ignorance. Thankfully, times are changing and so are people's mindsets. But if you happen to be growing up in such a household, take this slightly harsh advice to heart. Be selfish, be cold-hearted, and love yourself just a little bit more.